आपका ये समिट आने वाली कल
Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories this hour. The Israel Defense Forces says it has begun the first steps of its controversial military assault on Gaza City after calling up tens of thousands of reservists. This comes as the Netanyahu government considers a new ceasefire deal accepted by Hamas to pause nearly 2 years of war. Hamas responds to the start of Israel's new attack on Gaza City, calling it a blatant disregard for efforts to broker a ceasefire and hostage release deal. Critics inside and outside Israel warn that the new offensive will endanger hostages, displace hundreds of thousands, and worsen an already dire humanitarian crisis. In the United States, President Donald Trump's administration has imposed sanctions on 2 judges and 2 prosecutors at the International Criminal Court over the arrest warrant issued for Israeli officials. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio called the court a national security threat and an instrument of lawfare against the US and Israel. Russia has slammed attempts to provide security guarantees for Ukraine without Moscow's participation. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov criticized European leaders who met Trump in Washington, calling the efforts clumsy lobbying. A US judge says the Trump administration is in a better position than the federal courts to release materials that would satisfy public curiosity about the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. This comes as the Trump administration faces escalating pressure over the release of the Epstein files after a judge previously rejected a bid to unseal Ghislaine Maxwell's records. Texas lawmakers have approved a new congressional map designed to give Republicans an edge in next year's House of Representatives elections. This comes after 2 weeks of stalling by Democrats who fled the state in an unsuccessful bid to rally support. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says Europeans have no right to trigger snapback sanctions under the moribund 2015 deal or extend the October deadline to do so. Tehran issued the statement after limiting its cooperation with the IAEA nuclear watchdog following the 12-day war with Israel. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un praised heroic North Korean troops who fought for Russia in the war against Ukraine during a meeting with officers of the army's overseas operation. Moscow and Pyongyang have strengthened ties since Russia's war in Ukraine began, with Kim sending troops to fight in the Kursk region. This hour we start in the Middle East, where Israel's military says it has begun the first steps of a major operation to seize Gaza City, the heart of Hamas's remaining strongholds. Troops are already holding the outskirts of the city, according to IDF spokesperson Brigadier General F.A. Defrin, who described Hamas as a battered guerrilla force. At the same time, Israel has called up tens of thousands of reservists with full deployment expected in September. F.E. Defrin, Israeli army spokesman, stated the following.
בהתאם להנחיית הדרג המדיני ולאחר אישור התוכניות על ידי הרמטכ"ל, צה"ל החל בשלב הבא במערכה, שלב ב' במבצע מרכבות גדעון. אנחנו נעמיק את הפגיעה בחמאס בעיר עזה. מעוז טרור שלטוני וצבאי של ארגון הטרור. נעמיק את הפגיעה בתשתיות הטרור מעל ומתחת לקרקע וננתק את תלות האוכלוסייה בחמאס. אנחנו לא מחכים. התחלנו את הפעולות המקדימות והשלבים הראשוניים במתקפה על העיר עזה. וכבר עכשיו כוחות צה"ל אוחזים בפאתי העיר עזה.
The push towards Gaza City is drawing strong international criticism amid warnings of mass displacement and civilian casualties. The war, now coming up to its second year, has killed more than 62,000 Palestinians, according to Gaza health officials, alongside the 1,200 Israelis killed in Hamas's October 2023 attack that ignited the conflict. We're now joined by our guest, Rubinder Sachdev, who's an international affairs expert, and he joins us live from New Delhi. Rubinder, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Rubinder, this day commences the attack that has been widely criticized, not just from around the world and from Israeli allies, but also from within Israel itself, for endangering hostages and also causing and worsening a dire humanitarian crisis inside Gaza. What is Israel's stated goal here? Destroying Hamas in Gaza City or re-establishing full control? We have obviously heard Netanyahu's statements that there remains 2 Hamas strongholds within Gaza City. However, Israel's ministers are stating different. They want to take the entirety of Gaza. What are your thoughts on Israel's new offensive that has commenced today?
My thought is Netanyahu is leading Israel itself to disaster. That's my personal view. Now, looking at overall what's happening, you asked what's the stated view of Israel. The stated view of Israel, I think the very day Hamas struck on that October 7th or whichever day, was to completely eliminate the military, the political Hamas from Gaza. That is the stated goal on the first hand, right? Israel has completely failed in that objective. It's been almost 2 years of the war. Okay, fine, it may have taken out some of the, the leaders of Hamas and all, but we have seen gun-toting, wearing fatigues, hammers and balaclavas, etc. out there. So the military Hamas is still there. The political Hamas is still there. And on top of it, I would think that all 2 million of Palestinians have become extremely, there's no human word to describe the emotions which they can feel against Israel. So Israel has succeeded in creating a disaster for itself in the short, medium, long term. That's my view. And Israel is now, so that's a stated goal, get rid of Hamas totally. But that was initial. But now it seems Israel's goal is not only get rid of Hamas totally, political and military, but get rid of the Palestinian people in Gaza also, and also the West Bank, right? So that seems to be very clearly the goal being articulated by Benjamin Netanyahu, which I think he will never, ever succeed. I may be very, very wrong. This is something impossible, and I don't know either Israel has a wish to self-destruct, because this is taking a huge cost on Israel also, in addition, of course, to the, what we are seeing in Gaza. Israeli society itself is getting riven apart. Israel is falling short on its military manpower. That's another small thing. Its economy, etc. And the world is clearly, what Netanyahu is doing, he's saying that what I am doing, and if you say anything which criticizes my policies, you're an anti-Semite. He is positioning it that way, which is a very, very wrong thing. Israel can be criticized, should be criticized for its actions. But that does not mean that you say that I'm criticizing the Jewish people. So Netanyahu is playing that game, but France is seeing through. People have had, I think, enough is enough with Netanyahu's policies. That's my private, personal, of course, public view.
Yes, Rubinder, do stay with us. We have more on that criticism that is mounting on Jerusalem. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres is calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, warning that Israel's new operation to take Gaza City could bring massive death and destruction. Speaking in Japan, Guterres urged Hamas to release all of the hostages. Let's listen in to his statements.
Talking about peace, I must reiterate that it is vital to reach immediately a ceasefire in Gaza and the unconditional release of all hostages, and to avoid the massive deaths and destruction that a military operation against Gaza City would inevitably cause.
We are once again joined by Rabinder Sachdev. Rabinder, as we've spoken about this, pressure is mounting on Israel. The world is furious in some circumstances, and condemnation from allies, traditional allies of Israel, of course. I want to now focus on the language coming out of Israel itself. Obviously, we see these polished press conferences from Benjamin Netanyahu talking to international media, directing Israel's actions at destroying Hamas, showing these maps of the Gaza Strip, saying that these Hamas strongholds need to be destroyed in Gaza City, the most populated area of the enclave. However, coming out of Israel, you have figures like Bezalel Smotrich, who says statements like in May that Gaza will be completely destroyed in another 6 months and Hamas won't exist as a functioning entity. When you see these statements coming out of Israel, what does that say and reveal about some of the Israeli government's true intentions, given the actions reflected that the Israeli military is committing?
I mean, Israeli government's direction ahead is very clearly seen in the statements of the far right leaders, who seem to be the ones charting the map. Netanyahu is going along with them totally, or either Netanyahu himself wants it also. Of course he wants it himself also. Otherwise, see, no person can stand up for any cause for so long as he's doing unless he himself believes in that. So even though the far right is the one publicly saying that we will eliminate, take out Hamas and all, Netanyahu is just using slightly, I think, softer, politer language, but that's what Netanyahu wants. Now, the thing is that I think where the world is kind of looking at Israel, I mean, there's something known as a sense of proportionality. Okay, fair enough, a large number killed, shocked of the Jewish Israeli citizens and other than Israeli also. But Israel's responsible has been disproportional to an amazing extent. I mean, that's where Israel stands in the dock in terms of what it is doing with humanity apart. Now back to the Israeli leaders. Yes, they seem to be wanting to go ahead with, eliminating not a single Hamas. As of now, I would feel that according to Israel, every Palestinian could be Hamas. Even if not, there's a range. People who have sympathy. We say 60,000 killed. There must be at least 100,000 more who have been wounded, lost a leg, lost an eye, something. Right? There must be another 100,000 who've lost something else. And then each of them who's been killed has a brother, wife, son, daughter, whatever. Okay, so directly, talking that 60,000 killed does not convey what you've created in Gaza for yourself. So, that's what they are, I think, facing. But fine, they're proceeding ahead. All the best to them. Everyone is right. You are right to it, what you think.
Yes, Rabinder, do stay with us. We have further updates from the region. On the other hand, Israel's Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer has met senior Qatari officials in Paris to discuss a possible ceasefire and hostage deal in Gaza. According to Israel's Channel 12, Dermer stressed that any agreement must include the release of all remaining hostages held by Hamas. The meeting comes as mediators push a new 60-day ceasefire proposal, which Hamas has already accepted. But Prime Minister Netanyahu has so far resisted, saying Israel's goal remains the defeat of Hamas. Talks are ongoing under mounting international pressure to stop the fighting, with Israel preparing for an expanded military operation in Gaza City. Rabinder, your thoughts on how these negotiations, after once again a ceasefire that broke and fell apart in March, we have so far seen the release of one hostage. Hamas is now saying that it will release half with a 60-day pause in the fighting. Israel hesitant to accept. Your thoughts on Israel's approach in these negotiations?
One can draw a parallel between what Putin and Trump were doing in Alaska or the situation on Ukraine. It's a classic chicken and egg situation. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? what should come first? The ceasefire, immediate stopping of all guns and violence, and then the peace formulas arrangements worked out. Or first the peace formula arrangements worked out, and then a ceasefire. So that's the catch there. You want immediate ceasefire, but then Israel says, I want this, etc. Now, one really hopes. It seems that talks are getting serious, but it also seems that both sides are digging in harder. I mean, for Hamas to be talking like this, that we'll do this, the ceasefire terms are not okay with us. Hamas, that means, is stretching it out. That means Hamas is, it's holding its own fort in some ways. So therefore, a ceasefire may not be possible soon, because it seems there is no overwhelming advantage and power that Israel has over Hamas. If Israel had the military and all that, overwhelming, this thing that Hamas knew that, okay, I just cannot go on anymore, I'm totally cornered. There has to come to a point at that situation that Hamas would say, okay, I come to the table, I agree to your terms. But it seems Hamas is not doing that. That means they are still in the fight. And that's a problem.
Yes, Rabinder, do stay with us once again. We now move over to the related development, but over to the United States, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has welcomed the US's latest sanctions on International Criminal Court judges and deputy prosecutors, calling them a firm measure against mendacious smear campaigns targeting Israel. The United States has designated ICC Judge Nicolas Yann Galliou of France, Judge Kimberly Prost of Canada, and Deputy Prosecutors Nazhat Shahim Khan of Fiji and Mame Madai Nyang of Senegal, citing the court's pursuit of American and Israeli citizens as a national security threat. France expressed dismay over the sanctions, describing them as contrary to the principle of an independent judiciary. The ICC called the designations a flagrant attack on the independence of an impartial judicial institution and an affront to the rules based on international order, noting that millions of innocent victims worldwide are impacted. The sanctions freeze any US assets held by the designated officials and effectively cut them off from the US financial system, following an earlier round targeting 4 other ICC judges and the chief prosecutor. The ICC has stated that it will continue fulfilling its mandate in strict accordance with its legal framework without regard to any pressure or threat. Listen in to what the UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric had to say.
We firmly believe that the ICC is a key pillar of international criminal justice, and we respect their work. We're very concerned about the decisions taken to further hit ICC officials with sanctions under the order that came out from the United States. The decision imposes severe impediments on the functioning of the Office of the Prosecutor and respect for all the situations that are currently before the court. Judicial independence is a basic principle that must be respected. And these types of measures undermine the foundation of international justice.
We're now joined once again by Rabinder Sachdev. Rabinder, the International Criminal Court has very well known issued arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and his former defense minister Yoav Gallant. The United States has put sanctions on those who did so. What is your analysis of Donald Trump's approach to the independent International Criminal Court, which is set up obviously to hold international leaders to account, an independent body kind of related to the UN. Also, the United States' alignment with Israel in this matter.
So true. I mean, this is what to say. This is an absolutely unfortunate, if that's the most basic word one can use, development. I mean, but it's like it's evident that America is kind of, moving away from any international, associations, findings, etc. under Trump. America first. It is America first. So that's what America is doing, and this is not only a breakdown or for the international judiciary and judicial system and processes. It's about uh, the rule of law or the rule of society in which we live. Otherwise, we are going back to the jungle. Okay, humanity at this point of time, it seems, if we see, I mean, if there's a breakdown of conventions and norms, which for whichever may be imperfect, but if they still try to aspire to, create a common coexistence of nations and peoples within norms of human behavior, if these are being, eroded, then we are heading back to the jungle, sir.
Rabinder Sachdev, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. Pleasure to have your insight on that issue. We now move on, but stay in the Indo-Pacific, where China has renewed its push for closer cooperation with Pakistan and Afghanistan, holding a trilateral foreign ministers meeting in Kabul on Wednesday. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with his counterpart, including Afghanistan's acting Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi. During the course of the meet, Wang Yi said that the three countries should strengthen exchanges at all levels and consolidate strategic trust. Additionally, Wang called it necessary to improve the security dialogue mechanism, increase law enforcement coordination, and step up the fight against transnational terrorism. He also stated that China firmly opposes any external interference in the region and any motives undermining national sovereignty. Following the meet, Chinese state media reported that Wang urged Afghanistan to intensify action against the East Turkestan Islamic movement, a group Beijing blames for unrest in Xinjiang. Beyond security, Wang highlighted the need to expand trade, investment and connectivity and called for both stability and growth across the region. We're now joined by Jim Rice, who's a professor in international law, and he joins us live from Vigan in the Philippines. Jim, always a pleasure to talk to you. What are your thoughts on this trilateral meeting and China's engagement in this region?
Thanks for having me on, Thomas. Well,
Pleasure.
To try and address your question, it's the height of hypocrisy for all of the parties involved. It's the height of hypocrisy for any of these countries, such as Afghanistan, Pakistan, or China, to be talking about the law, as if, and national sovereignty, as if they understood or believed in these concepts. And so I don't think much of it, but it's really kind of laughable and sickening at the same time.
Jim, Afghanistan, of course, governed by the Taliban, and China has urged Afghanistan to act against the East Turkestan Islamic movement. How realistic is it for the Taliban government to take strong action, given its limited control within some areas of the country?
Well, again, I think that this is Wang Yi just talking, but I think that we really need to address the major issue, the underlying issue, which is, of course, the genocide that's going on in Xinjiang province against the Uyghur people. As we know, since 2017, the PRC has put into detention more than 1 million people and is engaged in slave labor of these people, is engaged in torture, rape, extrajudicial killings, and it's a major human rights abuse. And well, we should be focused on Gaza, and I fully concur with your previous guests' observations. The sad thing is that the Uyghurs, who of course are a Muslim minority peoples inside the PRC, are being completely ignored, and their rights are being trammeled by countries such as Afghanistan and Pakistan that claim falsely that they care about Islam and that they care about Muslim people around the world.
Jim, do stay with us as we discuss further updates from the United States as we move on. Texas lawmakers approved a new congressional district map aimed at flipping 5 Democratic-held U.S. House seats to Republican control in the next midterm elections, marking a significant move in the growing partisan conflict as California Democrats began their own redistricting push. Let's listen in to what Jean Wu, the Democratic Texas State Representative for District 137, had to say.
We have known that we needed to come back. We have known, now that we know what the courts are thinking, that we have an idea of what they'll do, that our best shot is in the courts. This part of the fight is over, but it is merely the first chapter. What the courts are looking for are the irregularities, this is not a normal process. They're trying to do something sneaky, and this is very obviously that. And they have laid that out as clearly as they could for the courts. We didn't have to do that. The Republicans themselves provided the absolute best evidence for their own corruption. And what it is you have a mid-cycle redistricting that, one, really no one else has done except Texas. Two, that they could have handled this in the regular session, had proper hearings, done all the stuff, and then let the public and the membership know what's going on. Instead, they chose to conduct this only in the special session, knowing that the special session rules would allow them to get away with having basically next to no hearings and having no public input and having no notice to the public.
Texas Republicans carried out the unusual mid-decade redistricting at the request of President Donald Trump, who seeks to improve the chances of maintaining his party's narrow majority in the U.S. House of Representatives amidst political challenges. Democrats have accused Trump and Republicans of trying to unfairly rig the results of the 2026 midterm elections. Texas Republicans were able to move forward after dozens of Democratic lawmakers returned to the State House in Austin on Monday, ending a 2-week walkout that had prevented the House from achieving the necessary quorum to vote. The bill to withdraw the map passed with 88 to 52 vote along party lines. Once both the Texas House and Senate reach an agreement, it will be sent to Republican Governor Greg Abbott, who has stated that he will indeed sign it. The House debate in Texas occurred just before the California State Senate was expected to take floor action on a redistricting package supported by Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom, aimed at redrawing the state's congressional map to flip 5 Republican seats to the Democratic side. Let's hear from Michaela Plisa, representative from Texas District 70, and what she had to say.
The next battlefield is the courts, and we will win there. And then we take the battlefield to the ballot box. And we will win, and that's why they're scared. And I'm just going to end with this. A favorite quote of mine from one of the best fighters against evil, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he said, when we get struck down, what? We will rise up more powerful than they could ever imagine. Are y'all ready to take our power back? Are y'all ready to register voters? Are y'all ready to go out and vote and show them why they should be afraid?
Newsom and his Democratic allies in the state legislature are working to fast-track the passage of their newly drawn map by Friday in order to place it on the ballot for voters in a special election scheduled for November the 4th. In a victory for Democrats, the California Supreme Court quickly rejected an emergency petition filed this week by 4 Republican state lawmakers attempting to block legislative action on Newsom's redistricting plan for 30 days. We are once again joined by Jim Rice. Jim, before we get into the legal issues of this, what does this situation say about the partisan nature of US politics right now, even in the House and the Senate?
Well, Thomas, first of all, thank you for bringing Obi-Wan Kenobi into such a discussion. I really appreciated that. To answer your question directly, it's highly partisan, and it seems that this all is coming about because of the unpopularity, the deeply unpopular policies that Donald Trump has been rolling out since he came into power about 8 months ago. And I think the voters are waking up to this. They're realizing that none of this is working. Trump is unpopular in terms of his immigration policies, of bringing the ICE agents out onto the streets, of bringing the military into Los Angeles and bringing the military into Washington, D.C. He's unpopular with regard to the tariffs that are just now beginning to have an impact on prices. And he's, I think, also unpopular because it's clear now that he's trying to roll back democracy. He's trying to disenfranchise voters. So I don't know what it says, but we will see in the 2026 midterm elections whether this tactic of Trump is going to work or whether it's not going to work.
Jim, thank you as always. Pleasure to talk to you, and thank you very much for taking out the time to join us on the program. But unfortunately, that is all that we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you for joining us.